Happy Friday, Pat.
Hey, Rick, how you doing, buddy?
Well, Zillow didn't crash the real estate market this week, so we're okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're good for another week.
I just get so befuddled at the headlines and comments that are being made, and even in large organizations about Zillow got out because the market was too volatile. Yet, and when you read it, that's not what Zillow said. So they're just picking and choosing. And Terry says a third world country decided to use balloons as a country's currency. It resulted. Oh, Terry, you go back to your room. Caused massive inflation. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, I'm done with this whole Zillow stuff. It's they did sell 2,000 homes to one investment group, and they're going to use those as rentals. So they did do that this week. But Phoenix, I'm sure they're probably more than halfway through their 200 homes. So, but we have 7,788 homes on the market today. So we'll be 8,000 tomorrow, we're stuck.
Once again, plugging along.
Yeah, Jackie, don't encourage him. Yeah, we're muddling along. It's, when people say, well, sales have really backed off, they haven't. That's the yellow line right there, right? I mean, they're going between 3,400 and 3,700 every 7 days. And inventory is kind of right there. There's nothing dramatic going on. It's just more of the same. And when you look at overall inventory in a Cromford report, there's our seasonal turn down right there.
Yep, nothing. We're getting boring here. We got something's got to happen. We really spice this podcast.
Well, I think if people start smashing the like button, then these numbers will start changing. So.
Is it? One thing I did notice on this, I'm getting a chicken neck I'm noticing this stuff. I don't know what the hell. I got to lose some weight.
Yeah, we may just turn your camera off, So, but looking at rates, there's a lot of school of thoughts that they could be going up, they could be going down. And one of the things that the Fed's warning us about right now is Fed warns of woes spreading as deadline looms for Evergrande. That's that Chinese development.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackie says, remember a few weeks ago, I said upper end seems slow. It's taken back off. Activity and contracts are up on the upper end. I've noticed that too. My contacts for this week are far greater than they were 2 weeks ago. It's going up. We went up by about 300 units past 7 days. But so this Evergrande in China, this is how much they owe in US dollar bonds and maturities. And I think they missed a deadline Wednesday. And so, but they're saying, without scrolling through and reading the whole thing here, they're saying that this could affect the global market. And there's another Chinese developer right behind Evergrande that said, Kaiza pleads for help as U.S. Federal Reserve warns of risk, and that it could really cause some uncomfortable financial situations globally. But what's the name of that guy that we follow in Seattle, that mortgage guy?
Steve.
Okay, so he said...
I mean the bond guy?
Yeah.
Bond King?
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. But he made the case this morning that said, if this happens and China and Evergrande starts causing problems, that puts downward pressure on rates. The Fed's not going to be able to back off. Inflation be damned. They're just, in order to keep things, stable, we may see the opposite effect. I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of agree with him, but I mean, the market's this market's really trying to find, there's been obviously upsetting news with this inflation. I mean, I'll give myself credit. Remember when they first started talking about inflation? Remember, how long ago did I say that this was not going to be transitory and that they're full of crap?
Yeah.
I mean, when prices start going up, they're like rates. When they go up quick, but they're very hard to come down. And, the market's just trying to find some type of level ground. I mean, the bond market the last week, was up 40 some basis points on couple, the end of last week, there was a day, I think I was on Thursday, Friday. I'm losing track of days with all the stuff that's been going on in my life. But, and then, then we lost traction here the last couple of days in the bond market. Yesterday it was down. Actually, yesterday was the day before it wasn't open, but it was down 69 basis points, a 10-year bond. Now, it's down 3. It's kind of stabilizing a little bit, but, like this headlines that we had on Mortgage News, you and I were talking about it. The headlines is mortgage rates are actually much higher this week. And, it just goes to show you headlines. I mean, I was pricing out being a broker, obviously I've got 30 different lenders I can go to. And I was looking at this one, the top lender I've got, which both these lenders are top on my loan sifter, right now at $470,000 purchase, $376,000 loan, 20% down. I'm quoting 3 1/8 with a cost of $744. About a week and a half ago, we were at, 3. I mean, the costs have gone up, but, like I said, on a $300,000 loan, they have probably gone up a couple $1,000s. I mean, in terms of costs, but to go from 3 to 3 1/8, I mean, you're looking at about a $25 difference in payment, on a $370,000 loan. I don't think that's gonna be enough to have somebody step away, especially when you get in a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 market where people are doing loans. People rate, their payment's going to change by $40, $50. I don't think it's going to, sway them from not buying a house.
No, I don't think that is, but I think you are getting some concerns of all the other expenses that are going up.
Your
food, your gas, and then while you're trying to save for your down payment, now rent is going up like astronomical levels.
Well, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt.
So inflation's going to bite for a while. So
yeah, I mean, like we talked about a couple podcasts ago before. This is going to bite the first-time home buyer, like you and I talked about. It's not going to hurt that guy that's buying the $400,000 or $500,000 house for the most part, but it's going to bite that guy, the first-time home buyer that's, the debt-to-income ratio is tight. They're like, hey, we can only spend this amount of money, and now they're seeing food and gas, and all of a sudden their monthly expenses have gone up by $500, $800, $900 a month. They're like, that's going to hurt that bottom, that first tier.
Yep, I agree. I think. They're getting beat up anyway.
Yeah.
I was going to share an article on what they call the housing conundrum from this guy at Calculated Risk, and he actually earlier in the week was saying that he kind of said the same thing you and I've been saying, that despite everything, I'm just going to follow inventory. Inventory is going to tell the story. Mm-hmm. So no matter what's going on out there and what effects are on real estate, it's going to show up in inventory. And so now he comes out with another writing here, and he's talking about the housing conundrum. And he's talking about demographics. And this is an interesting chart here. This shows the ages of 20 to 20. This dotted line right here, this is where we're at right now. So the age group of 20 to 29, that group peaked right here back in 2016. The age group 30 to 39, which is the largest buying block for real estate, is not going to peak until 2028. Mm-hmm. Based on demographics, we could be in this buying cycle for a decade. Now, normally, you find young men like me, going to a nursing home. And we're right here. So 2021, 2022. And the 60 to 79 age, which is where I'm at, right in the middle of that, we peak right about 2033. In other words, that population. According to their data, most people don't start either downsizing or going into assisted living or moving in with their kids or whatever until it starts at about 80 years old statistically. And so this baby boomer group, this is the leading edge of it, is going to peak right here. So those homes are not going to free up in time to close that gap for the 30 to 39-year-olds, right?
Yep. Now that's what actually Barry Habib from Mortgage Backed Security, MBS Highway, the tracking system that I have for rates on a daily basis. He said that's the biggest thing he broke this down. Basically, he said the baby boomers. That's why he's saying that we're going to see this trend continue for 5-6 years. He goes, the demand. He just doesn't see. There was a baby boom that the 30 to 39 group. There was back about in this it was in I think it was 86 or 96. I'm getting the years mixed up, but there was a year where if you looked at this graph that he had several months ago, there was this uptick for about 2 or 3 years. He goes, this is what's going to cause the demand in homes. And this is exactly pointing to what you're saying as far as this trend. He's saying the trend he doesn't see slowing down for another 5 to 8 years.
Yeah. Now there was another article that came out this week as well where this economist, she was saying that she warns that Phoenix is trying to get itself in an overbuilt situation, and that when you look at the number of permits that are out there and people moving here, that Phoenix, the only thing that's keeping us from being overbuilt is the supply side constraints. In other words, if they could get all their help and get all their lumber, we could quickly find ourselves in a year in an overbuilt situation, according to her. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know, how accurate she's been, because you can always find somebody that predicted the 2008 crash, and she was one of them. So, but that's an interesting scenario, and I could see how that's possible. But that she said, because it's taken so long to build a house, they're actually putting the brakes on overbuilding. So I thought that was an interesting scenario. I also saw the Mortgage Bankers Association forecast for 2022, and they're forecasting up 13% in the first quarter of next year, then up 2%, then in the third quarter down 2%. And then it goes back up in 2 to 3% increments going into 2023. And I don't know how anybody can forecast out that far, but so the first thing I did was I went in and said, well, okay, so if you're up 13% and then you're only up 2% and then you're down 2.5%, you're still way ahead.
So, yeah.
But then I looked at what their forecast was for this year. Any guesses? They said between 4 and 5%. And we're at 30.
Yeah.
So when I look and they say we're going to be up 12.5%, it's like, well, we'll see. So Tyler says, I think most of those new homes had very high costs too. They do everything from copper to lumber to materials to labor, and where'd all the people go? I had to get some work done on my trailer this week, and every place I called, they can't see me till December. I finally found a place downtown that saw, help me this week. They got me in, but they just don't have any help. You name the industry, they're shorthanded. So are they homesick? 6 million people quit their jobs, mostly in the healthcare and hospitality industry. But how come every industry's got a shortage?
I don't know. It's befuddling to me. I mean, we're in a weird time. You got labor shortages, you got supply shortages, you got, gas going through the roof, and, rates have been kind of holding their own. I mean, they've gone up a little bit. Obviously they pushed upward. Honestly, the rates should be higher. There's no doubt about it. They're obviously trying to keep it down. I think their feds are, even though, they got that the taper tantrum kind of under control, because they're still going to be buying mortgage-backed securities. They're going to go from like 110 billion to, like 60, 70, 80 billion. They're still going to be buying them, but except realtors.
Yeah. Rates should normally be a lot higher. I mean, with inflation coming the way it is, I hope we don't get ourselves in a situation like that happened with Paul Volcker, where they had to really clamp on the brakes. But that's what Fed Chairman Powell is saying, that he just doesn't see that happening, because back then you had too much money chasing too few goods that have been going on since President Nixon. And then you had to come in and raise rates incredibly high. And I was just talking to a guy this morning at the gym about inflation.
You went to the gym?
Did you? Yeah, I went. Yeah, this morning. Yeah. You notice? Now he said one day wasn't going to make a difference too, so don't start. But we're talking about inflation in the 70s. I worked in a grocery store, and back then, President Nixon decided that the way he was going to solve inflation was to freeze wages. You couldn't get a raise unless your position changed. And the grocery store I was working at, we had all these other guys that were working there. And I remember one day, and I was a senior in high school, they all came out with these new name badges, and they were all of a sudden vice presidents. And I didn't get it because I didn't, I was in high school. I didn't know that Nixon had put in these restrictions. I knew that you couldn't get a raise because my brother worked at a pay and save store and he couldn't get a raise and I couldn't get a raise. But everybody was walking around going, look, I've been promoted. I'm vice president. The store had 6 vice presidents. Even the produce manager was a vice president. And so I made a tag. I was a carryout clerk, the box boy, the bagger, right? And mine had my name, and I changed it to bag manipulating technician. I didn't get a raise. And Tyler's saying I was going to say you're looking sore. Yeah, sure. I'm looking sore. But on top of that, talking about how to control things, they also put in restrictions on meat, that you couldn't raise the price of meat unless you changed the meat. And so that's where Safeway Select came from. They just changed the name of it and said it's a more premium cut. So there's always a workaround. And Scott here says one day will make a difference. All right. Encouragement. I like that. How you doing, Scott? Scott, by the way, is out in Minnesota. Is that correct? And he's got a YouTube channel out there. And I haven't got a chance yet to add it to that national website, Scott, but I'm going to put it out there. So he reached out a couple weeks ago. I've actually talked to probably 5 YouTubers this week. It's been a great week.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyway, getting back to what I was saying was Powell doesn't think we're going to have to put those kind of restrictions in place, that this inflationary period is just because of supply side constraints. But what happens when all these people go to work, wherever they're hiding out now, and they all come back, and then that 1.9 trillion that's sitting out there in people's bank accounts all of a sudden gets unleashed.
Yep.
So it's they may have to clamp down on rates.
They like you said, that there's an argument that rates, I saw an article saying that there was a guy saying that they could go, that the Fed fund rate could go back to 0. There's just a lot of people, trying to predict stuff. And I know, like you said, I think your basis, our entire basis, just look at the inventory, because people want to know where home prices are going. And, I think that's the biggest, we're looking at the facts and not trying to look at the headlines. Like you said, this mortgage headline on Mortgage News, mortgage rates are actually much higher. It's just like, they're higher, but they're not, they're the way you read the headline, you swear to God that the rates went from 3% to 4% overnight. It's kind of ridiculous, but they have gone up, no doubt about it. But I'll share one. I'll share this one. It's here.
Scott and Finance with Foss have a weekly podcast now, so I'll put their link in next week. I'll put it in so you guys can follow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, this is where. Yeah, this is just the last. This is really the last quarter. You saw, like I said, the last couple of days. This was right here. This green day was on November 5th, which would have been on last Friday, and then we had this red one next to it was, we had a bad day. It kind of stabilized. Then we had a crap day on the Wednesday before. This Wednesday was it was down 69 basis points, and then you start to see wide swings like this. You can kind of tell the market's trying to. Then we saw a little, basing out here. It stopped right here. There's this line right here, but overall, the market's just trying to find its base. This is kind of like they have been going down. Rates have been going up. This is the 10-year bond price. They've been going down, which means rates are going up. So it's been kind of wacky.
Yeah, and for a while there, we were just muddling, just kind of staying put.
Yeah.
And you said we were going to see a breakout one way or another, and sure enough, it happened.
Yeah, and you could just tell it was ready to. I mean, all the crap, all the news that was coming out, it wasn't that good. Rates weren't going to go lower, but maybe things, they get to a point where things slow down with inflation. Everybody just kind of starts clamping down. And I think the Feds, they know they're in kind of a pickle. They know they're really kind of in a pickle, and they can't, they can't let rates get out of control, because hell, if that puts a clamp on the housing market, because we saw that back in 2000 when the tantrum, rates went from, they went to low to mid threes to like almost 5%. It did put a halt on a lot of stuff. People like, hey, I'm not gonna, if you get if you like in that scenario that I told you about on a $370,000 purchase, if rates go from 3 1/8, your payment's $1,611, but all of a sudden they go to, it goes to 4 1/8, it's $1,822. That's $211 difference. That's gonna make a big difference.
Well, what I'm concerned about now going into just this year is, look, this is a seasonal downward trend in inventory. It happens. It's Christmas. Coming up. So we're trending right. I thought down here that we were going to cross 2020, and we didn't, because inventory is everything. So here we go. It's pretty clear. We're just going to tag right along with our normal seasonal downturn. And when we get down here at the end of the year, we had 6,719. We could end up, so we have a difference now between last year at 7860 and 7128. So we could end up down, and that's 5,700. We could end up 5,100 homes last week of the year. That would be just, don't even go shopping. You're going to have to bring a tank with you. So what's going to happen in January? Is there going to be this spring back? So I don't know. I can't guess it. I can tell you that our seasonal trend is our seasonal friend right now. We know that it's going down. If I were to put up a couple more years here, you would see like a 2018, 2017, it's the same story. Down, down, down. So it didn't pull those up. So there we go.
Interesting side note. Remember you talked about that, how the Feds are trying to, on the credit bureau reporting rental payments.
Yes.
I was reading an article today. I don't have it pulled up, so I'm just going to go off of my memory, which is not very good at all. But they were talking about the fact that they did a survey for people, and they went back on data to find out it was interesting. There's 45 million people, they said, in this country do not have credit data.
Wow.
45 million people do not have credit data, meaning basically they don't have enough to pull a credit report. That's insane.
I was, I was with another brokerage, and we were getting leads from some lead service. Maybe it was an online lender. And so I got this lead, and they wanted me to call him. I called the guy, and he says he had a pre-qualification letter, he said. But he told me, he says, I don't believe in banks. I go, okay. He goes, so I just use it to put my money through to pay my bills, but I literally keep my money in a safe at home. Mm-hmm. And he says, and I don't have credit cards, and I've been renting. And I called the lending institution, and I said, how did you pre-qualify this guy? He goes, well, we saw his bank account. I go, well, he doesn't put money in his bank account. He just funnels it through. I said, how did you verify that he even has money? Did he lay it all out on the mattress and then take a picture? Mm-hmm. I caught him red-handed. They were putting out a pre-qualification form that wasn't worth the paper it was written on.
Sure.
And so I wasn't going to mess with that. And I bring that up because there's a lot of people out there like that have zero credit history.
Well, that actually, just to go back to that, like I said, 45 million people supposedly don't have a credit profile. But if you're a credit ghost, a lot of people will, if something bad happens to them, I saw this in 07, 08, especially in 2010, 11, 12. People are like, I just closed all my credit cards. I'm just paying cash for everything. Once becoming a credit ghost is just as bad as having bad credit, because you need 2 lines of credit. You need to show the lender that you can pay stuff back. And I was running into that a lot. It was like, I'm just paying cash for everything. I closed all my cards. Obviously, never close your credit cards. Even if you don't use them, keep them open, because I just talked to a gentleman I'm doing a refinance for. He had his bank closed his HELOC. He had this credit card, $25,000 credit card. He said, I never used it. And the bank actually that just blew my mind. I was very, just listening to the story just made me frustrated because the bank closed it for him. It cost him 70 points in his credit score.
Yeah, because they chose to shut it down.
They chose to shut it down. But I mean, so having no credit at all, though, is hurting everybody. But the point I was going to make about this survey, they said that they don't know how much this is really going to help the rental. People are renting because they said a lot of tenants, they're just not credit viable. I mean, it was, I don't know how much that's going to really help, I thought that was going to be big news, but it might help a certain percentage, but I don't think it's going to help as many people they thought, because it's just, they just don't have, they're not set up. The thing of it is, if they have to, use that, they probably don't have much other credit, which is tough. That's why I said, I try to propose to people when they're buying a house, looking to buy a house a year down, look at your credit, get 1 or 2 cards established and go from there. So,
yeah. And advise my boys at the same thing that, just get a card, $300 limit and go get some gas and then go home and pay it off.
Well, good. One thing I had a client of mine that he had 3 sons. He put them on as authorized users when he was 16, when they were 16, 17, 18 years old. They didn't give him a card, but he just put them as authorized users to establish, a credit when they were 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. So actually one of them just bought a house here a couple of years ago. So it's a way to go, jump on your dad's or mom's or both your parents' good credit. You can, that basically kind of, once you do that as an authorized user, it mirrors, they'll get an established score pretty quick within about 3 months.
Yeah. So, well, that's good. That's good.
Anyway, I'm getting off topic here.
Well, I don't, I may share that with them. We'll see.
Yeah.
My middle son is waiting to hear if he's going to be taking a job in Annapolis, Maryland.
Oh, wow.
Leaving Tempe and going out there. And he's also got another possible opportunity in Austin, Texas. So I'm rooting for Austin, Texas. So
yeah, no kidding.
I don't want to have to go to Maryland to see him. So
no kidding.
I'll go to Texas. So, well, this week, not a whole lot coming down the road, just financially, right? I mean, there's no big reports we're looking at. Maybe some inflation report.
So if there's an inflation report coming on, they're going to do another, the bond on Wednesday, the bond market got hit. Basically the last couple of days, because the 30-year auction was terrible. Because basically a lot of people out there are anticipating higher rates, so they're not going to go out and be buying bonds, when they could be buying it. If they buy a bond now and the rates go up, that value and that bond's going to go down. So it's, the bond the bond auction went off terribly, and that's why we saw rates get hit a little bit harder. I think we're going to see some stabilization here, but it's really with this wacky news, it's going to take some time. But still, overall rates are, overall speaking, I mean, you're looking at low 3s. I mean, several years ago, even a couple of years ago, if you just said, if I would quote somebody 3 1/8, they would have been jumping at they would have been crawling all over me to get that 3 1/8 rate, 3 1/4. Yeah. So it's all relative. And that's the problem, is people have to, once they get their expectations set and those expectations are moved, that the human nature is to get mad and frustrated and say, I'm not going to do anything because rates moved up 1/8 of a point or 1/4 of a point. But once they settle into a new range, people are like, okay, 3 1/8, 3 1/4. I think there's always this temptation that I've seen it before. People get mad and frustrated, like, oh, well, then I'm just not going to look for a house. I'm just, rates have gone up already. I'm done. And
I'm waiting.
All right, come on. Let's just chill out. They've gone up a little bit, but not crazy.
Well, closings over list price right now are still high. You look at the market there, we're still at 46%. I mean, we were way up to 60%, and the average is 10,000, 10,000, 14,000. What was interesting, I pulled up Sun City. Let me see if I can do this for you really quick, because I'm heading out there tomorrow, and I wanted to see what was going on in Sun City, and it's like a whole different world out there. So they've got, 60% are going, 50% are going above list, and the 2 to 250, 253, there's 37, but the amounts are going over are $5,000 or $10,000 or $5,000 in the 300, 400. So they're they're bidding them up, but not as much, except in that
Yeah.
one category of 250 to 300. That's an age group that says, I'm not playing in this sandbox.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're asking 250, damn it, I'm giving you 250.
Yeah, exactly. No, the rate of increase is obviously slowing down, but we're gonna go from 20% to maybe 5 or 6%. So but the headlines are going to read differently. They're going to be they have to sell papers and sell notes and stuff like that. It's all in the headlines.
Yeah,
But
Tyler, I don't see any indication it's a good time to get rid of rentals. I don't.
no,
I know there were people thinking about it because of the changes that were proposed for the 1031 exchanges, but that went away, thankfully.
yeah,
There were people kind of getting their assets together, ready to make that move. But I mean, if I had rentals, I'd hang on to them. I'm not seeing
yeah.
rent go
Rents
down.
are going
Jackie
to
says, I remember with parties we threw when rates became single digit. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought I was the king of I was 9 3/4, baby.
I remember calling my buddy when rates went under 7%. I'm like, dude, I can get you 6 3/4. He goes, lock me in today.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's amazing. No, the rental property. Rentals have been going. The thing of it is, if you sell now, if you're holding on, they've been holding on to that property. I'm just speaking in general. My gut would be if I got a solid rental, getting a solid tenant, I don't see any reason for anybody to get rid of, unless they're in dire straits, because once you sell that, then hell, what are you going to buy? What are you going to replace that asset with? And you got ongoing, why upset the apple cart?
Yeah, I think as long as you've got good cash flow, there isn't any, and really, if how fast will the rental market and the resale market change if you decide that maybe it's time to sell it? Because you'll see it in the inventory numbers.
Yeah.
So if you see that inventory is starting to come up and you see rent starting to stabilize, you've still got time to put that on the market.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
nothing changes overnight.
yeah, it doesn't happen fast. And everybody else isn't going to see it as fast as you will, because if you're tracking those numbers. So
yeah, we're on top
Terry
of it.
says, I remember the parties we threw when interest rates dropped to 14. I'm old. Yeah, I'm right behind you, Terry. So. Well, look, Pat, you have a great weekend. And let's see. Wait, we got a question here from Tyler. He goes, what inventory number would you look for? 20K? I think a couple things. Instead of just the number, I'd look for the velocity of the increase.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're seeing, let me go back to the number here for just a second, and I'll just use my green chart,
because 20 the average market is 25 to 30. The average market is 25 to 30.
27,000. That's been a balanced market. But honestly, if you see this blue line spiking up, so in other words, when you look at the Cromford report too, and you see, lines that go like this in inventory, and all of a sudden in 2 months, it's like this. That's your indicator. I think I'd say, okay, we're headed first towards a balanced market, and you'll see the bidding war stop. You'll see the headlines come out, crashes here, crash there, but it'll come out like 3 months later.
Can I give you? I'm going to give myself kudos.
Uh-huh.
I think I'll see it first before you do. When I see lenders, tighten up on programs. That's exactly what happened in 07. I'll never forget this as long as I think I told you this story. On a Friday, it was the beginning of February of 07. It was a Friday afternoon. I had these 3 borrowers, a brother, sister, and a boyfriend on this loan. They all had like credit scores of like 580, 585, doing 100% financing. On that Friday afternoon, the lender called me and says, sorry, we can't do it. We're shutting down our line. And I'm like, what? So I called about 20 other lenders, and they said, nope, we're shutting those lines down. We're shutting those lines down. Finally, I called one lender on like 5 o'clock. It was a subsidiary of Merrill Lynch. I can't think of the lender name, but he said, you got to get the package over here. I got to have it by first thing Monday morning, or else you're not going to get it approved. I got them approved, and it was like they shut everything down.
Wow.
So then I saw that, and I said, we're going to be in for a tough sledding. I called my buddy. I said, we're going to be in this thing for about 5 to 6 years. He goes, you're full of crap. I said, you watch. Sure enough, it was about 2011, 12. We were in it for about 4 or 5 years before it really. So not that was, I think I'll see it on my end before anybody. Lenders will start squeezing things a little bit tighter.
Yep. Then the sales drop and the inventory grows. So it's just a vicious cycle. So
I'll keep you posted.
In the meantime, where it's just more of the same, we know November, December numbers are going to be low. We're just going to hold our breath and see what happens in January. So,
yep.
All right. We'll have a super weekend, Pat. Thank the
buddy.
millions and millions of viewers that we have today. We have, I think we got up to 1,025,000 at one point, I think, with of course the 1 million being made up and the 25 being real. So
yeah, that's all right.
That's close enough. So.
Getting there.
All right. See ya.
Have a good night. Bye.